Stand by. Oh, there I am. What's up, smarty people? It's KeysDAN with RadioWhat.com, DJLittleRock.com, coming to you live and in living color from the Radio What Studios. And this is my podcast, What Makes You Smarter? It's an extension of the RadioWhat.com internet radio station that I've been running for quite some time. And if you need DJ services, where do I always send you? DJLittleRock.com. One more time. DJLittleRock.com. Check availability, get a free price quote, and maybe you could have me at your next event. You know I like to party with the people. The people need to be entertained. Are you not entertained? Let me entertain you. Right now I'm transmitting live on YouTube, Twitch, and Facebook. My personal Facebook, KeysDAN911. Oh, my personal Facebook is KeysDAN411. My professional Facebook is KeysDAN911. And then my Twitch and my YouTube are both KeysDAN. So subscribe, like, share, do all that, and find out when I go live. Usually it's around this time, but sometimes a little bit earlier and sometimes a little bit later. But you know, I got to get the news out there, give the people an idea of what's going on, give myself an idea of what's happening in the world, and then maybe some other tidbits of information that I might find interesting as well will go on this feed. Hey, this week's shows, as it is Friday in the evening, I got to get to the Rab pretty soon. That's the Rab in Conway, Arkansas. The club, if you will. It's a video dance party karaoke jam. I said karaoke. You're the stars of the show. Friday nights at the Rab in Conway, Arkansas. R-A-B, Conway, Arkansas. Full bar, kitchens open, pool tables. They got a pool tournament on Friday night. So if you want to try your hand at playing pool and possibly make some money, you could do it at the Rab while you're waiting to sing on stage right next to me. Little old me, KeysDAN. We also have a dance floor that's open. And if you want to hear something special, don't hesitate to ask me. It's what I'm there for, to entertain the people. Also, if you'd like to tell your story or hear the stories of others, I encourage you to check out my other podcast. It's called What Makes You Famous. Find it everywhere using the hashtag What Makes You Famous. Now, on with the show. Today on the program, 10 things you need to know today for Friday, February 11th, 2022. Oh, we're getting so close to Valentine's Day. Can you feel the love in the air? Love is in the air. Oh, yeah. Why does that song always pop in my head? There's other songs that mention love that pop into my head over this weekend. Whether you think it's commercialized or not. Love. It's a good time to think about your love. Do all that. All right, 10 things you need to know today. Number one, House January 6th committee finds gaps in Trump phone logs. The House committee investigating the January 6, 2021 Capitol attack found gaps in White House logs of calls then President Donald Trump made as he watched television coverage of the riot. Investigators haven't found evidence that records were changed or deleted, but Trump was known to sometimes use his personal cell phone and those of aides to call staffers, congressional allies, and confidants. The lack of comprehensive January 6 White House call logs is making it harder for the committee to piece together what Trump said and did during the attack by a mob of his supporters trying to prevent lawmakers from certifying President Biden's victory over Trump in the 2020 election. This is according to the Associated Press and the New York Times. Number two, diplomatic efforts accelerate after Russia starts military drills. Diplomatic efforts to defuse the Ukraine crisis ramped up on Thursday with representatives of Ukraine, Russia, Germany, and France meeting in Berlin as Russia started 10 days of military exercise with Belarus. Russia said the purpose of the, quote, Allied Resolve 2022, end quote, drills was working out, quote, the tasks of suppressing and repelling external aggression, end quote. But the U.S. and its allies have warned that Russia is preparing to launch another invasion of neighboring Ukraine. Russia also is planning to block off large parts of the Black Sea with naval exercises that Ukraine has protested, saying they will disrupt commercial shipping, a charge Russia denies. Russia's drills are believed to involve 30,000 troops in Belarus, the biggest deployment there since the Cold War. This is according to CNN. Number 3, consumer prices jumped more than expected in January. The U.S. Consumer Prices Index rose by 7.5% in January compared to a year earlier, the fastest pace in 40 years. The Bureau of Labor Statistics reported Thursday. The increase was higher than the 7.2% jump economists had expected, and the key inflation gauge showed that prices jumped by 0.6% in January alone. Quote, increases in the indexes for food, electricity, and shelter were the largest contributors to the seasonally adjusted all items increase, end quote, the report said. The data was further evidence that high inflation is not going to quickly ease with the recovery from the coronavirus crisis, and it increased expectations that the Federal Reserve will aggressively raise interest rates starting in March to keep the economy from overheating and bringing down inflation. This is according to CNBC. Number 4, Canadian mayor requests court order to remove border bridge blockade. Windsor, Ontario Mayor Drew Dilkin said at a Thursday news conference that the Canadian city was seeking a court order to remove so-called Freedom Convoy demonstrators who are blocking most traffic at a crucial U.S.-Canada border crossing. For 4 days, truckers and other protesting coronavirus rules, including vaccine and mask mandates, have been using dozens of vehicles to disrupt traffic across the Ambassador Bridge connecting Windsor and Detroit. About 30% of annual U.S.-Canada trade passes through the crossing, and the disruption of traffic has forced auto plants on both sides of the border to pause or reduce production. Quote, the economic harm that this occupation is having on international trade is not sustainable, and it must come to an end, end quote, Dilkin said. This is according to the Wall Street Journal. Number 5, Virginia Deputy Attorney General resigns after pro-January 6 riot posts surface. A top Virginia Deputy Attorney General Monique Miles resigned Thursday after the Washington Post asked the office of the state's new Republican Attorney General about Facebook posts she made praising people who attacked the U.S. Capitol on January 6, 2021. Miles, who was overseeing election issues for Attorney General Jason Miyares, also made more than a dozen posts over several months supporting unfounded claims about voter fraud and election interference. A Miyares spokeswoman said the Attorney General's office did not know about the Facebook post until the Post shared screenshots of them. Quote, the Attorney General has been very clear. Joe Biden won the election and he has condemned the January 6 attacks, end quote, said the spokeswoman, Victoria Lasavita. This is according to the Washington Post. Number 6, Reuters. Macron refused Russian COVID test to keep Moscow from getting his DNA. French President Emmanuel Macron refused to take a Russian COVID-19 test on a trip to Moscow this week out of concern Russia would obtain his DNA, Reuters reported Friday, citing 2 sources in Macron's entourage. Because of his refusal of the Kremlin's request, Macron had to sit distanced from Russian President Vladimir Putin across a 13-foot table as the 2 leaders discussed the Ukraine crisis. Russia gave Macron the choice of undergoing a PCR test conducted by Russian authorities to be allowed to close to Putin, or refusing and following social distancing rules, Reuters reports. Quote, we knew very well that meant no handshake and that long table, end quote, one of the Reuters sources said, quote, but we could not accept that they get their hands on the president's DNA, end quote. This is according to Reuters. Number 7, Liz Cheney says WSJ op-ed that truth will come out on January 6th attack. House January 6th committee member Representative Liz Cheney, Republican Wyoming, on Thursday released an op-ed for the Wall Street Journal assuring those who criticize the panel's Capitol riot investigation that their threats won't prevent the truth from coming out. Cheney started the op-ed titled, quote, the January 6th committee won't be intimidated, end quote, by recounting the oath taken by generations of public servants, including her great-great-grandfather, as he re-enlisted in the Union Army in 1863. The promise to, quote, defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, end quote. Cheney wrote that former President Donald Trump's insistence that former Vice President Mike Pence could have and should have overturned the results of the 2020 election, quote, was not only un-American, it was unconstitutional and illegal, end quote. This is according to the Wall Street Journal. Number 8, CDC changes guidance on opioid prescriptions. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention on Thursday proposed new guidelines for opioid prescribers, dropping influential but controversial 2016 dosage recommendations for treating chronic pain in a win for pain experts. The revised recommendations leave out advice on dosage and duration of treatment used by some states and caregivers to adopt tight restrictions that made it harder for some patients to get pain drugs. The changes are part of an effort by federal health officials to limit harm from long-term opioid use and make it easier for physicians to develop individualized treatment plans with smaller doses when possible. Quote, there's not a one-size-fits-all, end quote, said Christopher Jones, acting director of the CDC's National Center for Injury Prevention and Control. This is according to STAT and the Washington Post. Number 9, Russia's team gold in question over star skater's use of banned substance. Russian figure skater Kamila Valieva tested positive for a banned substance before the Beijing Winter Olympics. The news jeopardized the gold medal the 15-year-old star helped her team win and threatened to disqualify her from the singles event she was favored to win. Valieva tested positive for trimetazidine, trimetazidine. There we go. I sounded it out. A banned medication believed to improve endurance. Other top athletes have served doping bans over the drug's use. The International Testing Agency said Friday it would fight the Russian anti-doping agency's decision to let Valieva skate. The Court for Arbitration for Sport will hold an urgent hearing to decide whether Valieva can compete in the singles event next week. This is according to the New York Times and the Associated Press. And yes, I'm fully aware that I pronounced her name at least 3 different ways in that little blurb. Number 10, snowboarder Shaun White fails to medal in his final Olympic event. U.S. snowboarder Shaun White's Olympic career ended Friday in Beijing, finishing 4th in his final event, the men's halfpipe, and narrowly missing out on one last medal. White started his third run in 4th place, and while he went to land a 1440, he fell on his next trick. Japan's Ayumu Hirano, who completed 2 triple corks in his runs, took the gold medal, with Australia's Scotty James winning silver and Switzerland's Jan Scherer winning bronze. White, who won the gold medals in Turin, Vancouver, and Pyongyang, said Beijing would be his 5th and final Olympics. At 35, he is the oldest halfpipe rider in Winter Games history. Quote, snowboarding, thank you, end quote. White said, choking back tears. Quote, it's been the love of my life, end quote. This is according to NBC News and NPR. That's 10 things you need to know today for Friday, February 11th, 2022. Thank you so much for listening. Hey, if you're anywhere in the Conway, Arkansas area, I encourage you to follow me over to the Rab in Conway, Arkansas. I'll be doing the video dance party karaoke jam. You can dance, you can sing, you can have a couple drinks with your friends out there at the Rab. Over 21, please. Drink responsibly. A message from KeysDAN. They got a full bar, the kitchen's open, pool tables. Come on out and have some fun. The Rab, Conway, Arkansas, Friday night, 8 p.m. until 12:30 in the AM. That's it for this edition of What Makes You Smarter. If you'd like to tell your story or hear the stories of others, I encourage you to check out my other podcast. It's called What Makes You Famous. Find it everywhere using the hashtag What Makes You Famous. That's it for me. It's KeysDAN, RadioWhat.com, DJLittleRock.com. Peace. I'm out of here.